Okay, I know it's my review for A Quiet Place too, but I had to just get the spotlight on this. Look at how beautiful this is. This is a damn pop. They did some work on this detail. Think about the things I can do with this. Yeah! Hey guys, thanks so much for clicking on this video. My name is Chris. I recently just got done watching A Quiet Place 2, and with this sequel for A Quiet Place, we continue on with the Abbott family, witnessing the aftermath of the events of the very first movie. Us, the audience, not even missing a beat when they decide to leave their quiet haven and go out into the unknown, only to come in contact with a lot of danger along the way. This is going to be completely spoiler-free. I won't be giving away any spoilers. And man, I have to say, it's finally nice to have seen this movie, because literally, A Quiet Place 2 was the movie I was one day away from watching, and then the pandemic hit and all movie theaters around the US shut down. It was a little poetic to actually be able to see this in the cinema then with Dolby IMAX the way I recommend you guys watch it and check it out, because A Quiet Place 2 is another banger of a movie, man. John Krasinski knocked it out of the park once again with this second film, and I gotta be honest, I had my doubts, okay, because one, John Krasinski wasn't gonna be a large part in this movie because we know what happened to his character in the first film, and then second, we know the weakness of these monsters now. I thought the movie was really gonna overplay on that weakness and then just use it a lot. But to my surprise, this film is way more creative than the first movie. You remember when you watched the first Quiet Place and everything the family did to try and stay quiet with the sandbag trail, the painting, the uncreaky floors, just the way they've accustomed their life to being quiet. They get way more creative with this one, not only with the way the monsters come and attack, the way they fight back, the situations that these characters are put in will blow your mind. I'm not even exaggerating. There's early on, like maybe 20 minutes into the movie, something drastic happens to one of the characters. I literally jumped from my seat, closed my eyes, and I could not believe it. The film still managed to pack a bunch of surprises here, but let's dive into the characters. Without your John Krasinski there to kind of be the main character, you would think that Emily Blunt would become the new lead of this movie, when actually Millicent Simmons, I would argue, is the new lead role for A Quiet Place, and she carries the movie really well. She, now knowing the weakness of these monsters, feels like it's her mission to get this out to as many people as possible, and through the course of that, it puts her on a journey in this movie where she gets paired up with Cillian Murphy's character, who we all know the movie is obviously using him to fill in the shoes of John Krasinski, and man, those are some big shoes to fill, but the man delivers, being a much different character than John Krasinski, and that kind of makes you even sympathize with him a little more because he's not as skilled as John Krasinski's character. That's not to say Emily Blunt's character and Noah Jupe's character, the son in this film, don't also shine. In fact, this was the brilliance of A Quiet Place 2, because they did something I thought was super risky, and at one point in the movie, they divide up the cast where I was like, no, I want to see these characters together. I want to see them survive together. And I really thought it was going to completely turn me off to the movie. But the way they handle each character going on their own adventure and doing their own thing, getting caught in their own situation, while the movie literally cuts back and forth, pastes them together to where you're just having an incredible anxiety attack in your chair like, yo, pardon my French, but if you don't have to take an anxiety diarrhea after this movie, you were not into the movie, because it really is that suspenseful. Now, obviously, with me praising it this much, you're wondering, okay, is it better than the first movie? Is it about the same as the first movie? I would say it's about the same as the first film. The one thing I love about these Quiet Place films, just like the first one, they're short, just like an hour and 30 minutes, straight into the story, straight into the problem, and as soon as the problem is solved, the movie abruptly ends. And that's kind of great, but for the second movie, I would say that's kind of a crutch, because one thing I wanted was to explore this world more, not just physically and see other lands, but know a little bit more about these monsters, know a little bit more about some other people that are freaking crazy in this movie and what the apocalyptic world has done to them. And the movie feels like it only scratches the surface of other things. And albeit some people will prefer it that way to keep the mystery of the monsters and whatnot, but I think a lot of people agree once the credits roll, you're like, whoa, the movie's over? That felt like 40 minutes. What about this place? What about that? What's going on there? To where I thought I was going to want to do a spoiler review on this movie and talk about everything that this film reveals. And while there are, of course, spoilers and surprises, there's nothing really like jaw-dropping or deep diving into the lore of A Quiet Place. It's still very much focused on the Abbott family and their fight for survival and what they have to go to do with that. So I could definitely see some people being left with wanting more out of this movie. This is also hard for me to complain about because it feels like like it's the whole point of the movie, but sometimes it felt like they were over-relying on that jump scare where it's completely dead silent and then out of nowhere, giant loud bang. Sometimes it would actually be a monster scaring you, sometimes it would be absolutely nothing, like a flock of birds. But I felt like they overused it a little too much, but then again, that's kind of the whole premise of this movie. It's quiet and then it's loud and that's when you're scared. But even with those gripes aside, this is not a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination. I have a hard time believing anyone will dislike this film. It's really, really well made, well done. And you saw in the trailer, John Krasinski is somehow put in there through flashbacks, and just the opening of the movie, the way they kind of expand and show you day one of this apocalypse is a movie you would want to see in of itself. Seriously, if you're gonna make a third one and you don't want to make another sequel, I'd be fine with a prequel of the early days of John Krasinski in this apocalypse future. I really do recommend this one in the theaters. I know it's kind of hard to say because some places don't have theaters open. I think even Paramount Plus is going to have this movie released on their streaming service after 45 days, so anybody who's still living in a town where your theater's not open, don't worry, you'll get to see it fairly soon. But if you have the chance and you're feeling safe and you want to go to the theater, it is just the best way to do it because the sound just does not compare in your own home. At least it didn't in mine. When I watched the first movie, I was like, yeah, this is nice, but I just remember that immersive feeling when I was actually in the theater. So for A Quiet Place 2, I'm going to give action 3.5 stars. There's definitely a lot going on. The monsters are very much present and shown, not hidden like in the first movie, but it's really that brilliant storytelling where the film is able to show you 3 deadly situations, cutting back and forth, intertwining them at the same time, that'll get your stomach turning from suspense. Comedy in the movie, I'm going to give it 2 stars here. They're not really focusing on the laughs. There's a few cute moments here and there, but you're not really going to be chuckling throughout this film. Drama in the movie, I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. The story is still really well done, but it feels like we've barely scratched the surface of this actual universe to where by the end of the film, we kind of end up knowing the same, just like a little bit more about this world. Horror in the movie, I'm going to give it 3 stars too, because like I said, they do something to one character I was so surprised by. These guys are not untouchable or immortal. They definitely get their battle damage throughout here. Not only just that, but now that the mystery of what the monsters look like and how they act is gone, the film still finds a way to scare you on that. And suspense in the film, I'm going to give it 4.5 stars too. It is really well built in this movie. You're going to be having an anxiety attack and hoping these characters make it out of the situations they get put in, and then you'll be totally surprised by how do they get out of those situations. Casual fans, I'm gonna give it an A+. Cinephiles, I'm gonna give it an A+. And critically, I'm gonna give it an A-. For Quiet Place 2, it gets the 3C guarantee. Really just one more movie that is as good as this first two, and you have another perfect trilogy on your hands. I would just like maybe some deeper substance, a little bit more about these monsters, if not a little bit more about some of the other people living out there and the crazy stuff they've been doing in the apocalypse. Are you guys gonna be watching A Quiet Place 2 this weekend? If you did, go ahead and watch it. Leave me your thoughts down below. Anything and everything, be sure to like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at 3C Film Review. As always, I'm Chris. Take care.